Hello and welcome back once again to my Kerbal Space Program NASA series. It has been so long since I put up another video and there have been so many different versions put out. I'm going to put a verbal disclaimer in this episode and I'm probably just going to keep hitting on it until the end of the series. This is version 0.24.2, so do not expect any of these mods or my mod build to still be even remotely viable. This is all 64-bit. It's quite unstable, but it still runs enough for me to finish the series. So once again, this is pre-beta code and version of the game. So a lot of the mods here have not been updated in a very long time. If you tried running a bunch of these in 32-bit, I've tried on 1.0.5, which just came out very recently. I'm not really able to get a whole lot of different mods running in 32-bit because of the expanded parts list that has been added to this base game. It seems like I can't really add nearly as many as I used to before it starts crashing, but a lot of the new stock parts have kind of taken over for a lot of the mod parts I used to download, so it's kind of a trade-off in that respect. Thinking specifically of the Space Shuttle main engines, they don't work quite the same way as Datobi's, but I was goofing off with them earlier and really was able to make something very similar to the shuttle I'm using right now with just stock parts, so that was pretty exciting. If anybody remembers, which I highly doubt, this is my faulty lander that was attached to the Hermes. It was meant to go for a test run out at Minmus, but you'll notice the fuel pipes did not stay connected to the engine after multiple load and reload cycles. So the last mission, the whole point of this shuttle flight, was to add a heat shield to this thing and try and bring it back. I thought about trying to stuff it in the shuttle and bring it back, but with the fuel tank orientation, it just was not going to fit into that cargo bay. And without any fuel actually to drive that engine, deorbit was a very long RCS burn. I had to do multiple passes so I could maximize the impulse I got out of them by only burning at the apoaps, and it still took forever. With that finished, the shuttle starts to pack up, and I am once again very close to unlocking the Venture Star. The last part I need to put my Venture Star into operation, but it's going to take this Minmus mission to actually pull it off. So until then, if I need to fly anything up in a reusable craft, the space shuttle is still going to be on call for the time being. Looking at, I actually wrote down a bunch of notes because I knew heading into this semester with school and work and all those other things, my chances of keeping up with this were probably going to be rather slim, so I wrote everything down. I don't have any shuttle missions planned for the future, but I may come up with something in the interim, but rapidly approaching the point where I can do a manned mission to Minmus to kind of shake down Hermes, the lander, and all the other systems that need to be tested before I commit to a very long journey out to Duna. Also have my Voyager 2 probe approaching Joule, and there's another long duration mission that I can't recall exactly what it is. I think it's headed to Duna. It's not another rover. I'm gonna have to look that up. It's obviously been a very long time even for me. Some of this footage I recorded back in September, and then some of this I'm on Thanksgiving break and I made some time to play last night. I am hoping, and we all know how these plans have turned out in the past, I'm honestly hoping to get one more episode out this month and 2 in December. The 2 in December is going to be real easy, hopefully, because school ends on December 9th. So we will definitely see how things go there. Back to the interminable RCS burn from Hades. We finally get that periaps down low enough to start bringing, hopefully salvage this. It's not a insignificant dollar amount attached to this, or funds amount, if you want to get specific. One of the other things I'm running into is with my prestige level being so high, it is very difficult for me to make money because most of the contracts I'm getting are asking me to put things around Ike and Gilly and all the other fun, very distant bodies that with my self-enforced realistic tech level would really not be reachable. So we'll see if I can come up with a way around that. Unfortunately, during re-entry, it was a very subpar configuration for installing all the heat shielding. I was hoping they would model kind of a shockwave effect that would protect the parachutes. Unfortunately, if it is modeling a shockwave, that heat shield is obviously far too small to protect the entire circumference of the vehicle. However, with it going edge on, being relatively low mass, and some of these parts having quite a high impact tolerance, I was kind of hoping that maybe physics would smile on me, and I would get lucky, and maybe there'd be, you know, at least one or two parts I could bring home to declare a successful mission. And I was hopeful of that right up until, yeah, not a single scrap of the machine was salvageable, but the mission wasn't a total loss. We got Hermes reinforced with extra strutting, removed the crappy, non-functioning lander, and were able to bring the crew back. So, wasn't an entire loss, just the bonus did not quite go as I was hoping for. A couple weeks later, I wouldn't say drastically redesigned, but I did redesign the lander to a more conventional practical design. Start launching it on a kind of standard rocket for me at this stage. I'm really one of the things that I'm noticing in 1.05 is that talking about my parts mods, I haven't really put in a lot of parts mods because I was mainly using B9 for the space shuttle parts. And now that the stock game has parts, you can build a pretty convincing shuttle facsimile just with stock parts. I really, apart from that really awesome rover cockpit I've been using, I really don't see a lot of use for B9 parts. There's a couple here or there that I'll probably plug in. I am honestly truly waiting for the 64-bit Unity build of KSP to come out before I start thinking about another series. The game is totally playable, but I have completely spoiled myself with the mod list I've been able to run. I can run a lot of parts, but then I don't have clouds or these just wonderful visual mods, which really they don't impact the gameplay that much, but I think they look great. I've got a 1.05 save that I'm playing with right now that I've got Astronomer's Pack and Planet Shine on, and it's gorgeous, but I really can't run a lot of parts on it because the RAM limit. With the redesigned lander being able to be fully autonomous via remote tech, figured it would probably be beneficial to try and attempt a docking by itself without a crew on board, just because the possibility that I slam into Hermes and wreck everything if I happen to destroy pretty much at this stage 3 months, or no, maybe a month and a half worth of work. I won't add insult to injury by chucking a few Kerbals onto the fire at the same time. Get that encounter nice and low, and then time warp in. Just a bunch of tedious orbital maneuvering. I've really gotten obsessive about returning my upper stages to Kerbin. Maybe not salvaging them, just having them burn up in the atmosphere or crash, just because I don't like leaving space junk up there. I've never had a collision, but I have had things come within a kilometer or two of orbiting hardware, so probably would be best to play it on the safe side. And it's only now that I realize I did not have RCS maneuvering jets on this upper stage, so I was trying to do all of this with the engine. Got close enough and switched on the lander itself, which does have RCS. I was trying to minimize the RCS burn here. Also going to be experimenting with how I plan on resupplying Hermes with both fuel, life support, and all those fun things. Just because if I want it to be a truly usable spacecraft, I am going to have to find a way to reuse it. This is kind of an awkward docking approach, and once I figured out I probably shouldn't be coming in on the side of that directional antenna, found a much more betterer way of docking here. It's kind of a tight squeeze with that fuel tank configuration, but that was pretty much the only way to kind of build the lander out rather than building it taller, while still being able to maintain at least a 6-person descent crew. I believe that's 2 3-man pods there. Once again, that cupola looks a little different. That is the KSPX cupola, which actually has room for 3. Does not have a stock or a custom interior. It's just the Mark 1 2-pod interior. And I feel like I'm going over a lot of stuff I've probably already covered before in this series, but it has been so long since I've been playing that it is I'm relearning things too. It's like becoming reacquainted. So with the upper stage on its crash trajectory, decided to send up the flight crew, which was the original crew, the original trio, for this shakedown flight. Most of the dangerous docking operations are underway. It's kind of nice to have Kerbals up there to be able to handle any unforeseen circumstances, which really came out. That's going to be in the next episode, but it really pays off in the end. Not going to spoiler too many things, as much as you can have spoilers on a fan-made internet series using a video game to create content. Unfortunately, in my redesign of the Soyuz, in order to put some universal storage modules on it, I messed with the staging on my rocket. And that kind of comes back to bite me in the butt here. I was not paying attention to my staging. And yes, I just released the Soyuz inside the fairing without jettisoning the fairing. In real life, a fairing is flimsy enough that I figured I could still get away with just kind of blasting through it. And if it exploded, so much the better. It would at least look all explodey and awesome, as things in Kerbal Space Program are wont to do. So I'll go ahead and get max throttle. I backed up against the bulkhead as much as I could with RCS. But unfortunately, no explosion was to be had. Guess the collision algorithm on those KW fairings is not quite perfect. Or just, this was a very strange edge case, and I don't know, there's no blame to be assigned here. I'm pushing this game way outside its normal operating limits, expecting these mods to do a lot of stuff that they normally don't typically do, so oh well. I don't imagine many scenarios where a craft would launch through the fairing were ever entertained. Unfortunately, I have gotten so rusty at my rendezvous, having been away from this for however many months. I have, it's taken a lot more effort to make my docking maneuvers than it used to. I'm being a lot more wasteful with RCS and fuel than I had been, so that's definitely a learning curve I'm going to have to readapt to. I'm kind of, and back to what I was talking earlier about 1.05, I'm kind of torn on the new aerodynamics. They're better, But I've gotten so used to Ferrum that I think I will continue to use Ferrum. I am only hoping that when 1.01 or 1.1 comes out, yeah, that's what they're talking about, that the 64-bit is stable enough that Mr. Ferrum himself will reintegrate 64-bit support. I don't blame him if he doesn't. That's with the 64-bit builds that came out earlier, there were so many things outside modders' controls. I definitely totally understand why they disabled 64-bit integration. I am only barely keeping this thing running with pretty much Scotch tape and chewing gum, so it's certainly not something I would wish on the general player public at large. Null out the relative velocity and cut out pretty much all the boring maneuvering shenanigans, just because they're boring maneuvering shenanigans. You've seen one Soyuz docking maneuver, you have seen them all, my friend. Slowly bumping in at a little over a third of a meter per second. I can actually come in a little faster, but it just keeps it from banging into things too hard and then setting everything into a slow spin. And even then you can kind of see the Hermes kind of wobble a little bit when it makes contact. Shortly after arriving, we get the crew transferred over. And the lander was designed with tie-down points. I've got Kerbal KAS strut endpoints on it, and I've got some already built on the Hermes. So it's basically just a matter of no matter what orientation the lander actually docks in, I can still secure it more securely to the ship. But that requires a manual EVA to do, and I really prefer sunlight. I still apologize profusely. It seems like every time I dock things, it's night. The way I play this is I don't talk while I play, because even I don't think I'm interesting enough to listen to babbling on for the hours it takes me to get some of this footage. And also because I've always been paranoid of that catch-22. If I happen to say, in the very rare instance I might say something interesting, maybe something really boring will be going on screen, or if something really exciting is happening on screen, I'm just going to be on a really boring topic. So, and plus sitting here playing games for hours talking to myself is, like I said, even I don't find my voice that interesting. Make a quick connect to the lander so it won't wobble around as the ship is accelerating and turning and doing all those things that spaceships need to do. Tried to get those tie-down points lined up somewhat, but I wasn't going to be too obsessive over it. One thing I am concerned about, though, is life support. The trip to Duna is going to be quite a long one, and I don't know if the Hermes itself has enough life support to actually make the trip. One of the benefits of this thing being single use is that, just for the transits, is that it does not have to use any of its life support while the Kerbals are on the surface of Duna, living off the base that I have designed and not yet deployed. But that's still a really long trip to have to make, and I'm not entirely certain if I have enough. I'm going to have to do some math, which when I'm in the middle of the school year, doing math for fun is a little difficult to motivate myself to do. This is the Hermes resupply vehicle. It's kind of a prototype. I'm not entirely happy with it, but it's kind of a new concept for me. Basically following a blade of structure principles is as I'm dubbing it. Without those solid rocket boosters, the thing has the structural rigidity of an undercooked noodle, but those things put so much thrust out that it's really not beneficial to use them in space, obviously. So, once it gets into space and those jettison, it is much less structurally rigid, but I don't have to use as much thrust from that primary engine. Because the goal is that upper stage is actually not a stage at all. That fuel tank is meant to refuel hermits. So the goal was to design this so that that fuel supply would not be touched by the engines on the actual craft being used, which is kind of a tall order, but we'll see how it works out. It's got a massive amount of acceleration. Unfortunately, one of the recovery parachutes for the lower stage burned off. I was just going to see if I could even possibly recover that lower stage, so I put some parachutes on it. It has no heat shielding, so chances are every single one of them were going to burn off as it re-entered. So, but I had a bug which deleted the debris before I had the chance to switch back to it. So, and I went and I checked. My max debris is set to unlimited, so I don't know if this build is falling down around me or if I've just done something wrong. So instead of ejecting a payload out of the fairing is just kind of an aerodynamic nose cap over this docking adapter to protect these solar panels and all the antenna arrays. Once high enough out of the atmosphere, as I demonstrated, I blow those off so that the docking port and everything are exposed. I'm thinking some extra batteries and some docking headlights would be a good order of business for the next attempt with one of these. Once again, not going to tell exactly how it went, but you can probably gather from my tone it did not go perfectly. Wasn't a disaster, but that'll all be covered in the next episode. So for now, we're just going to have to establish this thing in orbit, or at least set up the maneuver node. And please stay tuned if you've stuck with me this far. And thank you for watching.